Is Mike working today? I think he is. Hey, everybody. Can anybody hear me meow? Sounds great, looks great. All right, fantastic. First of all, today's word to the wise is do not get yourself this casual game called Dragon Merge. You ever heard of it? Yeah, don't play it. I am painfully addicted to this silly game. I know. Hi, everybody. My name's Mike Meyers, and you are welcome to the 2 to 4 o'clock Central Standard Time. We've just jumped back in here in the United States, so we're back to Central Standard Time. Live stream called Ask Mike Anything, stolen from Reddit, AMA. The goal of this AMA is to provide those of us who are isolated by the coronavirus an opportunity to continue our studies for CompTIA certifications. So that would be IT Fundamentals, A+, Net+, Security+. We could certainly go beyond that, even outside of CompTIA certs, but that's where our specialty is. That's where our superpowers lie, so we tend to want to stay within that area. The goal of this AMA is pretty simple. You ask me questions, and I answer them. So to ask me questions, you can just type them into the chat window here on your YouTube, or if you're the shy type, or if you feel that you have a more complicated question that needs a little more help, well, then you can just contact me directly. So you can send an email to michaelm@totalsem.com, and I will look it over, and I will answer your questions as best that I can. Also, if you're a gamer, I am Senor Pepe on Steam, and when in doubt, I am Desweds at just about everything. So that is basically how this works. So keep in mind that this is a 2-hour session. So it will run either till 4 o'clock Central Standard Time or until the questions run out. So sometimes we run a little short, which is perfectly fine. It's ups and downs, and however that works out is A-okay with me. I have no topics for today other than the ones that you asked me about. A little dehydrated. Pretty excited. I was doing my chest workout today, and I'm up to 50-pound, 50-pound barbells, one in each hand. It's like, feeling strong. It's a good feeling. Yeah, the other problem is I've been working out so much that my shirts don't fit. They fit around the waist, but now they're not fitting around my shoulders. So, what are we going to do here? All right, well, let's see who's online. Looks like most of the crazy people are here. Man, some of you guys get here. Elbow, you get 1:30 and half an hour early. Elbow, Andre, Elbow, Elbow, Andre. Tolowit, good. Scott Jernigan better be here. Project Draven. I do not remember you, sir. Welcome aboard. Connor Wellman. What's Project Draven getting good luck for? Did I not see it? Sometimes I don't get to see all the stuff. Project Draven, real name's Matt. All good. Just looking to see who's on, guys. Tarun is on. Ali Al-Sharif. Hello. Good to see you, Ali. So you know, Matt, I'll never remember Matt. It'll always be Project Draven as long as you keep that there. Which is all good. So Matt is studying for my 1002 with my materials. Good luck, man. Good luck to you, man. Knock it out. Come back here and tell us how you did. Scott Jernigan. Did Scott Jernigan come up with the questions for the A+? Well, Scott helped. A lot of us worked together on that. And Scott most certainly did write a lot of them. Patricia Grace, on early. Ask Mike anything except religion and politics. Yeah, definitely not politics today, kids. Tarun Chadra, how do you know which fiber to use? Multimode or single Mohs optical fiber? Okay, that's 1:59 p.m. Great question to start with. Well, there's a lot of criteria. First of all, if you're going to be using multimode, it's probably going to be like a LAN type situation. Most of the typical in-house Ethernets that are fiber that you see are going to be fiber-based Ethernet, and they're almost always going to be multi-mode because they usually don't have to go more than, well, 55 meters or more depending on which version you use. The single mode types of fiber usually only manifest themselves in longer runs. The laser aspect of single mode allows it to run 20 kilometers, 40 kilometers. And here in the United States, I'd assume it's the same over in Europe too, is that you're driving down a highway and all of a sudden you see this little boring brown building that's got a bunch of, looks like air conditioners on the side of it, and usually a cell tower. That is going to be a major interconnect for long distance fiber. And I guarantee you they're all running single mode. Generally, but you ask the question, how do we choose? Well, usually the circumstances choose it for you. If you're going to be setting up LAN type stuff, you're almost certainly going to be using classic, 10G base FL or whatever it's called. I get in trouble. Multi-mode. And then there's a lot of other specialties within that. Now this is going beyond A+, but for example, you can have different colors of light that are propagated, and these are, again, this is outside of A+ or Net+, but you can have a lot of variances within that. So, but keep it simple. Remember, for the exam, the only thing you're going to need to remember is multi-mode uses LEDs, and it's pretty short distance, and single mode uses frickin' lasers, and it can go for a long, long way. Then you're good enough right there. Ask Mike almost anything. Yeah. Told what, I'm going to cancel the election and declare myself emperor. Ooh, excellent. Alan Dugan's here. Dave Rush. We knew Dave Rush would be here. Marvin Jesus Wakan Parata. Hello, guys. Hello, Marvin. Taroom, who liked to play Age of Empires back in the day? Me, I still play it. About 2 years ago, Microsoft came out with a high-definition version of Age of Empires. It's a great game. They even put physics into it, which is hilarious. Like if you knock down a castle, it collapses. It's all very pretty. Same game, though. Jose Braden's here. Now we can start talking about him. Justin Kinsey is here. Very few questions. We're going to end up having one of those 20-minute ones, guys, which is fine. We're here for, I am here for you. Not much is going on, Justin, at this point in the game. Project Draven, I'm new. Oh, Matt, you've been here forever, man. You've been here forever. Oh, here we go with questions. 2:03 p.m. Ali Al-Sharif. Question about APIPA addresses. What will the host be able to do with an APIPA address? Will it be able to communicate with other hosts on the network segment or connect to the internet? Okay. That's nothing wrong with that question. An APIPA address, automatically programmable IP addressing, ooh, look at me, is going to generate a 169.254, and then the next two octets are randomized. The whole idea behind APIPA is that if your DHCP server dies for one reason or another, the LAN, or as you say, the network segment, that's good language there, nothing wrong with that. All of those guys will not have a DHCP server. So in a relatively short amount of time, they will all have 169.254s on a WAC 16 subnet, and therefore they'll be able to talk to each other. They will not be able to get on the internet because invariably every router on Earth has a static IP address assigned to the LAN side of the router. So the router is not going to suddenly be able to read 169.254s. The router is still going to be 192.168.1.1 or whatever it happened to be. So a very strong sign of your DHCP server being down is that people start popping APIPA addresses and you can't get on the internet. Man, that's dang near a exact question from CompTIA. Axe 203, just Axe. Mike, when it comes to port numbers for the A+, is it important to know if each port is TCP, UDP? Absolutely, but keep in mind there's almost no UDP ports. There's trivial FTP? I'm going blank. Yeah, so really the answer is memorize the 3 or 4 ports that are UDP and everybody else is TCP. So it's not a matter of memorizing so many. But there's a couple of questions. So yes, ACKS, it is important. Kevin Lopez, hey peeps. Kevin Lopez, ¿cómo está, amigo? Matthew Surf, 2:04 p.m. When receiving your certification, they give you the certification paper at the test. What happens if you're in a shelter and don't have an address? Geez, Matthew. Well, first of all, if you're in a shelter and trying to go for certifications, good for you, man. Congratulations. I'm always respectful of people getting themselves out of the muck. Well done, sir. I can't imagine a situation where you have to have an address. Scott Jernigan, you can double check me on this, but I'm pretty sure you have to have an address. Sorry, I'm being invaded by cats all of a sudden. Margot, Kitty. So Matthew, find somebody who can loan you an address. You know, do what you got to do. Look, the one thing I can tell you about CompTIA is that they will bend over backwards to help you. So the right answer is I don't know the right answer. To me, the simple answer would be find somebody who will let you piggyback on their address. But worst comes to worst, CompTIA always surprises me with how hard they will work to help people out. And what I would recommend is go over to www.comptia.org, and they've got I don't remember the names of the departments, but just call there and tell them what your situation is and see if they can give you some help. You never know with CompTIA. Every time I want to say something awful about them, they end up doing something very, very nice. I got the same scrolly problems as always. And yes, Scott, I have the pop-out chat. U4 Rayman. Which part of the OSI model deals with ports, at least in terms of Net Plus? There is much debate when researching. I agree. But to me, it's going to be the session layer. Because in order to establish a session, you have to have an IP address and a port number. But the fact that there's a lot of discussion on it says a lot about what you would see on that in terms of what's on the exam. Okay? So, because U4 Rayman, I'll bet you want to say it's layer 4, right? Transport layer. To me, it's a session thing. I feel pretty strongly about that. Jessica Kinsey, Mike Meyers for Mr. Olympia. I'm working on it, guys. I just got to get all this flubber off of me. Elbow, I don't know what Age of Empires is. Elbow, Google Age of Empires. It'll all be there for you. All right. Too late. What time is it? Okay. Reza Hoizine. God, Reza, if I'm mispronouncing your name, I apologize. Coming to you from Toronto. I've been to Toronto. I've only been to just a few places in Canada. I've been to Toronto, Canadian size of Niagara Falls, been to Vancouver. That's about it. I like Canada. It's like the United States, but mellow. So, Reza, do you watch Letterkenny by any chance? Coming to you from Toronto. Finish your Network Plus all-in-one exam, 7th edition, and Udemy visitor preparing for my Network Plus. Thanks for the content. You're welcome. So, Reza, one more thing. What are you doing for practice questions, dude? That's always a big one. As I always tell everybody, there are 3 pieces that will make you succeed in any not just the stuff I do, not just CompTIA, any certification. A book, a video, and practice questions. And honestly, if you made me yank one of those 3 out, I would probably say, it really depends on the person. For some people, I'd yank the video. For some people, I'd yank the book. But literally, the last thing you yank, the most important thing you need, are practice questions. And yes, Reza, I do sell practice questions. Good that you asked. In fact, this week, We have 50% off all A Plus and Net Plus Total Tester and Total Tester Sim bundles and our Security Plus Total Tester. So our Sims are the performance-based questions, and our Total Tester are our practice questions. And Reza, we already have I think we have the best practice questions out there, and I think we already have the cheapest practice questions of the people who provide practice questions for CompTIA. And Reza, we're now going to give it 50% off. So all you got to do, Reza, go to www.totalsim.com. I'm sure Scott's already put it in the chat. Go over to our merchant area, pick up some of those Network Plus practice questions, and then just when you check out, type in the code Thunderbird 2020, Thunderbird 2020, and you get 50% off. How crazy is that? What a deal! It's an amazing deal. It is an amazing deal. It's crazy. Our prices are insane. Elbow complaining about it. Okay. Ivan Taylor. Hi, Mike. Simple question for you. Good. Your last 10th edition book of A+, is enough material to pass the exam? Yes. That's what it's for, man. Ivan, I always tell everybody the same thing. The best way to guarantee that you're going to pass any certification, not just mine, is have a book, have video, and then have practice questions. I think that is the winning thing. Yes, I do happen to sell all those, but I made those because I think that's what most people need. So the book is fantastic. If you were going to buy anything else, oh God, please buy practice questions. And if you don't buy them from me, there's plenty of other great folks out there that also sell practice questions. Who would I recommend if you weren't going to buy mine? Hang on a minute. So, I would be looking at a company called Cyber Vista. And they used to be called Transcender, but Cyber Vista bought them out. They do pretty good. Their primary question writer is a very dear associate of mine, Robin Abernathy, who I've been trying to get her on here for 2 months. I'll get her. But now you would say to yourself, well, Mike, why are you advertising somebody else's practice questions? And there's a very good reason for that. Because if one set of practice questions is good, a second set is better. And the challenge you run into with practice questions, whether you get them from me or anybody else, is that writers have a voice. Just like I can tell you I'm reading an Ernest Hemingway novel within about 3 sentences of reading it, because it's Hemingway's voice. And unfortunately, that happens with practice questions too. And a lot of times you'll get people, they'll use one bank, text practice question bank, and then they go to take an exam. And again, this is not just for CompTIA, guys. This is anything where you're using somebody, where you're paying for practice questions. And it ends up having this voice to it. So when you get in and you're sitting in the exam, it's like it doesn't have the same voice. And you're like, I have the knowledge here. I have the knowledge, but because of the practice questions, especially if you've really been pounding on them, you end up, sometimes it can be confusing for some people. I have found the best remedy for something like this is to just go ahead and order practice questions from another source. CyberVista is a great one. They are a worthy competitor of mine. And then that way you're looking at the same questions, but they're written differently enough that you don't get locked into one voice. So what you got to do is get a buddy. You buy one set of practice questions, they buy the other set. Buy mine because they're a lot cheaper than CyberVista's. Just looking for more questions. 2:10 p.m. Elbow. Mike, is there something helpful to help me remember the difference between DNS and DHCP? Is there a way to help me remember the difference? To confuse DNS and DHCP, in my opinion, Elbow, would be confusing like a, trying to come up with a good analogy. confuse a Ford F-150 with a Nikon F-200. Just because there happen to be an F in both of them, they're very, very different things. And of course, DNS and DHCP are very, very different things. I know what they stand for, but see, now here's the other thing, Elbow. When you say, I know what they stand for, does that mean you could sit there and say, what, Dynamic Host Control Protocol? No. What is DHCP? DHCP is the tool set that we provide IP address information to automatic clients. You have to have a DHCP server. You know what I mean? Because you're so intimate with playing with it. If you're studying for A+, and if definitely studying for Network Plus, you should be messing with DNS and DHCP a lot. You've been following, not this week, the guys were good enough to cover for me on Monday, but the previous week and the week before that, we spent a lot of time using VirtualBox to set up a Windows domain controller, which has DNS and DHCP in it. What a fun way to just play with that and to practice and work with it. So the answer is, Elbow, if you're confusing them, it means you haven't worked hard enough on them yet. Start configuring up some DHCP servers. Turn it off. Watch clients go to a PIPA addresses. You know what I mean? Configure DNS. You can configure DNS using Domain Controller, which is all free. We did it all over the past few weeks. You can set up a Linux box and set up DNS and DHCP. Not as pretty, not as fun, but extremely functional. And play with it. That's really the big thing. I think one of the things anybody should do is you should set up 2 DHCP servers on one LAN and just watch the clarity involved, because you set one DHCP server to pass out, 10.11.12 something, the other DHCP server to pass out 182.168, and just watch as your clients start to ask for IP addresses and they get weird stuff. I hope that helped. Looking for questions. Nico, IT, 2:11 p.m. As an IT tech, what advice do you have for us motivating users to not feel as though they're in the dredge of IT and feel opposed to learning, regardless how supportive we are to them? All right, so Nico, I'm going to make some assumptions here. The first thing I'm going to assume is you're an instructor. And if you're, I'm going to scroll down, Nico. Am I in the right track here? Talk to me, Nico. Say something. Anyway, the one thing I've learned about teaching IT is that, and my books and my videos are based heavily on this concept, and that is, most of the time, users lose interest is because either you've talked over them and you've techno-babbled them out of understanding, or they don't understand why they're learning something. So I'm always packed full of little anecdotes. Like with DHCP. Okay, Bob, you're getting a 169.254 address. What's that? What does that mean? You want to fix it or not? So that's the one thing I'll try to do. And you got to be, especially the more you learn about IT, the easier it is to technobabble people. And by technobabble, I'm probably not using it in the right context. I want to use a term in the right way, and I want to introduce new terms in such a way that they can easily understand it. Those are the two big things. The other thing you have to keep in mind, particularly in instruction, is that some people are viewers, some people are readers, some people are kinesthetics, they want to touch and do, and you've got to bounce your story around. If you watch any of my videos, you're going to see me blab, blab, blabbing a while, and then I'm going to say, here, well, try this, or have you ever considered that? And hopefully, they're selling pretty good, so maybe I'm doing something right. So those would be some ideas. Nico, don't be afraid to build on that question if you'd like, sir. Tarun, why DNS servers are only in the news for DDoS attacks? Are other types of servers more resistant to DDoS attacks? Yeah, well, they are. Well, DNS by definition has to be public, right, Tarun? We can't it's a lot harder to put a Cloudflare reverse VPN proxy like we see on a lot of web servers. You click on it and say, do you get this Cloudflare sign? It's hard to do that with DNS. Now, once we get DNSSEC working properly, it's going to be a lot better. But you know, DNS is one of those protocols that needed to be fixed 20 years ago, and they're just now getting to the point. So I would disagree with you by saying DNS, DDoS attacks are the only thing in the news. I certainly would hear of lots of others. But DNS is a problem, and there's aspects of DNS that are just, we don't really have the answer to. 212, Andre, did we have a cat in the background? I'm cat free. Greg Davis, 214. Been missing some good sessions with y'all. Yes, you have, young man. Doing work-related training for the past months. Okay, working is better than listening to me. All right, so you and Reza, you've got the practice questions. Dude, you're set. You'll be fine. I cannot, well, I will not guarantee. If I could guarantee that you had good study habits, and if I could guarantee that you weren't, oh God, you get so many people, like they get angry and stuff like that. I'd like to be able to guarantee, but I just don't know your study habits and stuff like that. That's always a challenge. I will tell you that I've gotten many hundreds of thousands, probably, I don't know if it's a million yet. It's hard to count. All I can do is guess. But I've gotten a lot of people through CompTIA Search, so hopefully we'll just keep doing that. 215, Sam B. What's the difference between a subnet and a VLAN if they both separate networks? What's the difference between a subnet and a VLAN if they're both separate networks? Okay, well, so a VLAN works at layer 2 of the OSI model. A VLAN creates its own broadcast domain. And a VLAN doesn't have to have any IP addresses. I know we live in a world today, Sam, where everything's TCP/IP, but it doesn't have to be. There's other protocols, and a VLAN will work just fine on those other weird protocols. Whereas a subnet is a construct of a IP network where we take a certain network ID and then break it down into smaller subnet IDs from the one single starting network ID. It's an interesting question, Sam, and it shows that you're a learner, and it's a great thing where you start to get fine-tuned on that. But VLAN and subnets are different animals. I almost feel like you need to ask me another question. So, but I'm going to leave it like that for just a minute, Sam, all right? Ask me more questions. We can build on this. If you score an 81, do you think you're ready with my practice questions? You're probably fine. Look, I used to shoot a lot of pool, okay? And if I was going to go out to play pool for the night, I would go and play snooker. I don't know if you guys know what that game is. Imagine a much bigger pool table and much smaller holes. And so I would play snooker and I'd practice that. And so by the time I'd go out and go to the little 50-cent tables, the pockets looked that big. So I always knew I was going to do well if I went with snooker first. So there's kind of an analogy here, and that is, look at my practice questions as kind of like a snooker table. People tend to do much better on the actual test than my practice questions, simply because my questions are kind of hard, kind of on purpose. I'd like to see you doing an 85, but with an 81, you're probably fine. It costs so much money Marvin, to pay for the exams, practice a little bit more. Study a little harder. The thing you got to be careful about with these practice questions, I just stress this over and over again. You'll see folks, they'll start pounding through the practice questions, right? Oh yeah, oh, that's C, that's D, oh, that's 16, that's, you know what it is? And what happens is you become intimate with the practice questions and you forget to be intimate with the question themselves. I'm going to tell you right now, I do not have any identical questions on my practice banks that are on the actual exams. Number one, that would make CompTIA very, very angry. But I get pretty close. So if I have a question that says 2 plus 2 equals what on my practice questions, you should be practicing 2 plus 3, you know what I mean? And 1 plus 4. Does my analogy work for you? Is that I expect you to be close. And you should always, 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 man, if you can get a secondary source, that's good for your soul. Web Dev Bootcamp 217. God, how do I run so behind? I always feel like I'm going fast. Hi, Mike. How are you? Fine. What is external data bus and what is address bus? Okay, so you got to remember that the external data bus almost doesn't truly exist. Well, it most certainly exists, but the external data bus, for the most part, is why do we have RAM? Why does RAM exist? I mean, the programs are sitting on the hard drive. Why don't we just scoop the programs off the hard drive and just run it through the CPU right there? Well, the answer is because hard drives, even SSDs, are many factors of 100 slower than RAM. So we need RAM to be able to run a program. Running programs requires lots of stuff. For example, you can't just run this line, run this line, run this line, run this line, run this line. Sometimes you have to, if last name equals Meyers, then jump down to here. And then sometimes programs have to write stuff, and they have to put it back. So you need a form of memory that you can access randomly, RAM, okay? So, where'd the question go? Okay, so in order for your CPU to read lines of code or to write stuff into RAM, later when you hit File Save, it'll go to your hard drive. You need the CPU to have the ability to say, oh, I want this row of RAM, or then I want this row of RAM, then I want this row of RAM, then I want this one, this one, this, then I want this. You get the idea? So the address bus is what the CPU uses to communicate with the RAM so it gets the right line of code. That only, if it's like a spreadsheet, all the address bus does is point at which line of code you want. The external data bus, which is, that analogy is a little weak, but it still does work. The external data bus is the actual data. That's the pipe that says, oh, you want that one? Drops in the pipe, and it's through the external data bus is how the CPU actually reads it. Does that make sense? Address points to the RAM, and then the address bus actually is the pipe where the ones and zeros come through. Okay? So like when we're talking about 32-bit or 64-bit processors, a 32-bit or a 64-bit processor have to have, if it's a 32-bit, it's 2 to the 32nd power, because it's 32 wires in essence, that to address all the possible memory. 64-bit, it has 64 bits of addressability, but no CPUs have been invented yet with all 64 wires, because that's such a huge number that nobody's ever going to make a motherboard with that much RAM on it yet, but it's coming. U4 Rayman, if there's a new Security Plus coming out November 12th, is it worth waiting, buying video training for it, or buy the existing one? Always buy the older exam. U4, you got to understand, there's going to be like a 6-month window. The old Security Plus is going to be good through like July. See if Scott's going to help me. Scott, it's like July, right? So you've got this window where you can take either the old exam or the new exam. The old exam's been around for about 3 years. We got it pretty good figured out. I've had to make some changes in a few videos. I've had to add or delete some practice questions. because, you know, you hear stuff. Can't change the book, unfortunately. But no one's going to ask you in an interview, well, which Security Plus did you take? July. Yes, thank you, Scott. No one's going to ask you. So why take a new exam that nobody knows? Guys, I get the same objectives that y'all get. The only difference is I get them a lot earlier than you guys do. And so that helps me develop training materials. But the reality of the situation is it doesn't really matter which one you take. So always, always, always take the older exam. Always take the older exam. Flock is back. Hello, Flock. Christopher Schaff. Hi, Mike. A web hosting support job I'm interviewing for says the candidate must have a basic understanding of TCP/IP protocols. Web support hosting. Yeah. Make sure you understand a SSL/TLS handshake. I mean, if you're taking NetPlus or Security Plus, you'll understand that stuff. I don't think they're going to ask you anything that terribly complicated. You know, what is basic, right? I mean, you should have a understanding of IPv4 and IPv6 addresses, what they look like, what is a loopback, how they're propagated, that kind of thing. But that would be the best I could come up with. Project Draven, Matt. DHCP is the post office and DNS is the letter? That's the danger of analogies, guys, as I've learned the hard way over the years, is that sometimes analogies fail. Matt, I'm going to disagree with that particular analogy. That doesn't make it bad. It just means I disagree. The important thing is good. Ali Al-Sharif, 2:22 p.m. What is a good place to go to understand IPv shorthand notation? Ali, I go into it nicely in my books. I go into it nicely into my videos. I'd always recommend my stuff first. I think I do a really, really good job with it. My stuff. Sorry, bud. 2:22 p.m. Axe. Mike, what's the difference between hybrid and a private cloud? You can still have a private cloud with a third-party vendor, correct? Yeah, you pretty much got it right there, dude. So a hybrid is a private cloud that we extend out to a few other people. Okay, glad I helped, Elbow. Well, I lost where everybody was. There we go, okay. Ian Camacho, hey Ian. Question, is an access point essentially an amplifier repeater like a hub? If so, is an AP considered a physical layer device or a data link layer? A wireless access point, right? It is not an amplifier. It will. Wow, interesting way to look at stuff. Is the AP essentially an amplifier? It's a bridge. I mean, that's the main thing that an access point is. It's a bridge between Ethernet and 802.11 network. It's a radio signal, so it definitely broadcasts, like if you're listening to radio in your car, if anybody does that anymore. So it's a broadcast. So you don't have to have a hub. In a wired network, the only way to propagate a signal to multiple systems is with a hub. But intrinsically, because of the nature of radio, right, it broadcasts and it can also receive because you have radios and receivers and everything. So it is like a hub in that you have to be careful about how you talk to it. So it uses something called CSMA-CA whereas old school hubs use something called CSMA-CD. God, we're going back a little bit here. But it's not because they're like a hub because it is a single unit to multiple unit topology, not because there's any amplification or repeating going on. I mean, there is repeating going on, right? Because you have incoming Ethernet, which then goes out to the 802.11, and then vice versa. But that's just the nature of what a bridge does. I'm not sure I like that answer. Let's see if you do any follow-up on that. Here comes Nico. Okay, Nico, I think I got the answers for you there earlier in terms of motivation. Nico, if you want to, you can always send me an email, michaelm@totalcenter.com, and we can develop this more. Usually I'm better when you give me a particular scenario where you might be losing a student or something like that. But always feel free to email me or continue to post in here. Anyone's fun. Falak likes my books better than the videos. Falak, you're in the minority, my friend. Most people are video folks. Vimal Lad, 224. Where have you been? Folks, Dave Rush, folks including me wanted to hear about your commencement address experience. It was great. The folks, and it's really more adults. It's not like kids, although there's a lot of younger people in there. I basically gave them the same speech. You guys have heard me in here. It's like, the number one thing that's going to get people working and going to get you promoted is hustle. And I think that's been true. You could be a plumber with a lot of hustle and be successful. I really want to avoid the politics here. When I was a young employee, I never had a problem. I would pull all-nighters. 5 o'clock rolled around. Who cares, man? We're having fun. We're playing with technology. I never really looked at it as a hassle. Everybody said I had a lot of hustle. I was like, no, I'm just having fun. My biggest problem is they're like, well, we're not going to pay you overtime. And I was like, whatever. We'll get her fixed. I was well received, Dave. Everybody liked me. It was a Zoom meeting. There was just shy of 100 people in the Zoom meeting. I couldn't see everybody at once, obviously. But we had a good time. And I feel it was very well received. Vimal Lad, can you explain in short the difference between a gateway and a DNS in network interface card? Okay, so it's not really in. We'll just worry about that as an English thing. I don't care. So you're doing fine, Vimal. So your gateway is the router. If you have a local area network and you're connected to the internet, you do have a router somewhere. And that router, which acts as a gateway to the internet, is known also as the gateway. So the LAN IP address of your router is the gateway address. And it almost always ends with a .1. Also, if you want to get on the internet and you want to type in things like www.google.com, you need to have something that can look at www.google.com and figure out what you're really asking for is an IP address. You guys understand there is no such thing as www.google.com. There's a computer somewhere with an IP address. Well, in the case of www.google.com, probably about 10,000 computers. So DNS simply allows you to use fully qualified domain names. You can be perfectly well on the internet without a DNS server. But most of us like to use fully qualified domain names when we're talking, particularly on the web, so we like to have a DNS server. On most small home networks, your router is not only your gateway, but it also acts as a DNS server. It doesn't really act as a DNS server. What it really does is it will take outgoing DNS requests, and the router itself has a DNS server. See, this is the thing people always forget about, and that is all the endpoints. Sure, they have to have a default gateway, they have to have an IP address, they have to have a subnet mask, they have to have DNS, right? Most of the time, as you march your way up the internet, different routers and things like that also have that type of information as well. It's not just for endpoints. So the gateway is the address for your router, the LAN side of your router, and your DNS server is the whatever machine is resolving your fully qualified domain names. On most home networks, or a lot of home networks, it shows up as the same because the router is intercepting your DNS request and sending it to its DNS server. Reza, I'm currently studying unemployed, so studying is all I do. Go get a job. Go get a job. Matt, go get a job. This is what always, well, I need to get all these certifications, then I'll get a job. No. It doesn't work that way, folks. If you're getting certifications to get a job, you're making a mistake. The only thing a certification can do for you is get your foot in the door for a good interview. The only thing that a certification can do is put your resume at the top of a stack. That's all it's going to do for you. Resumes in technical interviews, I will often ask people what their certs are because it gives me an idea where they're at. A lot of times I'll use a certification or I'll say, yeah, you haven't done any certification in 10 years. You know, is this person a flatliner who's lost interest in IT? So certification shows people that you're in the game. But to simply say, I'm going to get XYZ certifications and then I'll get a job is a mistake. Assuming that you have bilateral symmetry and relatively good hygiene, I could get almost anybody a job here in Houston today. Job demand is very, very high. So I'm not saying you're doing that, Reza or Matt. I'm just saying if you're thinking about that, don't do it. Andre, somebody told me about a company that's looking for fiber optic techs. Would that be a wise career choice? Probably not. Would it be if you're unemployed, then it's a very, very, very good idea. But for a career, I have found cable pulling, unless you start going for like your BICSI certifications, BISCI, BICSI is or BICSI, they are the kings of low voltage cabling solutions. And if you think wireless is slowing down cable, you're wrong. We're pulling more cable today than we ever have. Those guys do okay. And you end up getting a I can't remember the name. BICSI LAN architect. It's a 6-figure job. You'll see it in a lot of, like if they're building a new building and they're specking out all the low voltage wiring, the network cabling. A lot of times it's required to be signed by one of these guys. Scott, do you remember the BICSI cert that gets you way up there? I don't remember. I forgot the name of it. Sam B, thank you so much. I'm starting to understand. I thought by using a subnet, it was separating the network into different broadcast domains. Nope. The VLAN certainly separates it into different broadcast domains, but a subnet by itself doesn't. I mean, one thing you could do, for example, if you had a number of VLANs, is that you could take one network ID and put a separate subnet on each one of those. But the reason you're putting a separate subnet, different subnet IDs on each VLAN, is so that way you can take a router and connect the two VLANs together and it'll work. If all the VLANs had the same 192.168.1 dots and you try to hook a router to it, it wouldn't work, right? Because they wouldn't know where to send the data. BICSI ICT cabling. Well, Scott, there used to be a special name for it, and I'm not saying you're wrong, but it's a pretty high-end one. Yeah, anyway. So, Andre, if you wanted to get into cabling, you definitely want to take a look at Bixi. B-I-C-S-I. So those are the only four Scott's actually texting me here, guys. Okay. Well, Bixi has changed a little bit. Check them out, though. They're still very, very reputable. Cookie Monster, you're awesome. Thanks, citizen. I'm doing your program through MedCerts now and fun and thorough. Thanks, Mike. Good. Yeah, MedCerts. Good folks. Looking for questions. Yeah, guys, if you type a question into the chat and I miss it, type it again. Usually Scott will throw me something up that I missed something, or sometimes I just miss stuff. I wouldn't say I was missing it, Bob. You guys never saw Office Space? Great movie. Falak, did I get your email? God, I hate that, Falak. But no, I don't hate that. I'm always embarrassed if I miss people's emails. Oh, well, I can't check my emails right now. I'm having trouble with Teams. Hang on. I'm not leaving you hanging, Falak. I got this. Go back to Outlook. Oh, you sent it to me yesterday. I see it now. Hey guys, Falak passed the Security Plus. Jesus, you almost scored an 800? That's better scoring I made on it. First attempt without completing A+. Oh man, good for you. I do not know much about Linux. I was thinking about taking up TLA+. So basically, Falak's asking me about Linux Plus materials. We don't make any. I don't know of anybody who makes them. So, sorry. So, Falak, by wacky coincidence, a day before I had somebody asking me for a Linux Plus course. Yeah, I'm not doing Linux Plus. I'm not doing Linux Plus. Okay. Back to the questions. Noonan. Falak, anyone help with installing Ubuntu on Oracle machine? Like an Oracle brand name? I don't. Oh, you're installing Ubuntu on VirtualBox. Sorry, Scott's texting me. So I missed Greg Davis. Did you hear about the new AMD Smart Access memory when pairing with the Zen 3 and the Big Navi R6000 series GPU? Wonder if you have read up on it. Yes. I have read up on it, and it's pretty cool. Probably it's been 3 years since I built a new super system. Looks like it might be time for Mike to build. Ooh, that'd be fun. Little change of pace. Have a build video, or at least some starts on it. I don't know if I'm doing it live would be boring, right? I mean, watching me screw in screws. Maybe I could just give you updates or something like that. Yes, I have heard of it. I haven't done a lot of research on it. It definitely seems to be a tremendous memory improvement. Okay, so Falak, if somebody hasn't given you the answer already, somebody looked up your question. They basically just cut and paste the error. And the problem you have, Falak, is that you are already running Hyper-V. You cannot be running two hypervisors. You're going to have to uninstall Hyper-V, which is a real pain in the rear end. Or, if you wanted to, Falak, go ahead and put Ubuntu into a Hyper-V virtual machine. I concentrate on VirtualBox in here because it's cheap and easy to use. It's free and easy to use. Hyper-V is free, but in my opinion, it has some gotchas that I find very irritating. Like, for example, if you install Windows, if you have a Windows 10 system and you install Hyper-V, you put your own Windows 10 into a virtual machine. Yep. So I'm not a big fan of that personally. But it does work. Hyper-V has some interesting features to it. Like if you need to have a virtual switch, it actually makes a little icon of a switch and you can connect. It does a better job of understanding how to set up local area networks virtually than VirtualBox does. I'm not against Hyper-V, I'm just not good at it. And somebody was kind enough to just cut and paste your search and they found out what the answer was. All right, Ian. Glad to see we're getting there, brother. There's Scott. Scott, I just got up to that question. I'm up at the 2:42. How am I doing on time? We're not that bad. Seem to always be about 50 minutes behind. Oh, Scott Jernigan had the answer for you there too. Falak, you're set. Dan T, 242. Hey Mike, how realistic is it to get a remote help desk position fresh from A+ cert? Pretty good. Dan, I don't know where you live. I don't know what you sound like. As you can imagine, for help desk positions, they like people who speak well. You know, but in general, remote help desk positions are relatively easy to get, but you have to look in the right places. We did a video about 2 months ago on how to get entry-level IT security jobs. That would work fine for you. Please watch that. It gives you some really good ideas. U4 Raymond, hey Mike, what happened the other day being unable to join those other VMs to the domain controller? Did you figure out what the issue was? Yes. For some reason, I accidentally changed the domain controller from the IP address, the static IP address that I typed in. Somehow I accidentally turned it to a DHCP address. That was it. I went back into the domain controller, changed its IP address back to whatever it was for that network, 10.0.2.10, I think it was, or .5, and everything automatically worked. Poof, not a problem. And a week ago last Wednesday, we were talking about that. Yeah, guys, if you're still playing around with the VirtualBox and you're still having trouble, please ask questions. You know, it's once you get that baby set up, your life is good. Chris Arkwright, hey everyone, joining late, doing, you know, the whole job thing. I hear you there, brother. Keep doing it. Matt Mittelstadt, any suggestions on what to use for a trouble ticketing system? I do not. I'm not familiar with any of those too much at all. Matt, if you send me an email, though, I'll help you do some R&D on that. I can call some of my buddies and see what they're using these days for ticketing software. Ugh. Sorry, kids. I am dehydrated today. Nitrous Music, artist. I had a 499 too. You had a 499 Nitrous Music. Okay, that's not a good score, as I'm sure you understand. Nitrous Music, have you been using my tools? Are you, uh, you know, look, everybody fails certification exams. It is normal and okay and good. Yes, it's expensive. Yes, it's time consuming, but it's normal. And the bottom line is that other than the minor frustration of money and time, you just set up and you take that exam again. If you were using my materials, I don't know whether you are or not, if you were using my materials, when you get your test, it tells you where you need to study. My materials track to the A+ objectives closely, and I would concentrate on that. But yeah, Axe, if you want any more help, contact me directly, okay? Mike Meyers at total7.com. I mean, failing an exam sucks. I'm not going to lie, but you know what I don't want you to do is fail a second time. Matt, oh, you guys are just talking about all the toys you want. So generally, guys, if there's an @ sign, I skip past it very quickly. Okay, so if you want me in on the conversation. Yes, Scott Jernigan, 246, or install Ubuntu and Hyper-V. Again, I have no issues with Hyper-V other than I don't want to turn my primary bootable operating system into a virtual machine. It works great, folks. There's no problem with it. I just find that a little too big brother for me. And that's why I've chosen VirtualBox. Everything that I've taught you guys in VirtualBox, everything you can do in Hyper-V, okay? In fact, there are some aspects that Hyper-V does, in my opinion, better. I just know VirtualBox, and I like it. I like it. So, nah. Why don't you get a job? Get a job! Alive and Bold TV. Houston, you say? Absolutely. Honestly, though, and I'm not going to pin this on every one of you guys in here, but I will pin it on some of y'all, statistically, is that most of the time, if I run into somebody who can't get a job, it's because they have bigger obstacles that they have to deal with. They don't have a car. They can't leave some little tiny we ain't got no IT work town. They're having to care for somebody. They have weight limitations in terms of what they can physically do. There's plenty of work out there, folks. You just have to sometimes go get it. It's not to say if you're a little patient, you know, you can overcome all those things. I know lots of people do it. There's also hanging your own shingle, which surprises me that so few people do. It blows me away. When I go to a party, the two most popular people are the doctors, because everybody's like, oh, I got a pain right. And then the IT people, because they're like, oh, I got a pain in my hard drive. And there's a tremendous demand for IT services. And you start, you know, working on your brothers, sisters, plumbers, hairdresser systems, and you will screw up a lot, and that's okay. Especially days like this, to try to get real IT service is challenging. And if you're somebody who's willing to, I mean, you don't have to sit in people's houses, but if you're willing to pick the systems up, you could easily start charging immediately at $25 to $30 an hour, and nobody would even blink. Not even blink. Well, Mike, I don't know how to fix everything. Yeah, you do. You got Google, you know. 9 times out of 10, I walk up to a system and I see a problem. I don't know what it is. I don't know. You know, figure it out. That's the joy of being in IT, guys. That's literally the most fun part of it. And a lot of times people are like, well, I tried that, it doesn't work. Okay, are you sure you want to be in IT, right? For me, it's like, it didn't work. Okay, let's drill down a little more. Let's drill down a little more, you know, and you figure it out. It's part of the joy. There are cats walking around, that is for sure. Alive and bold. Ooh, here came a bunch more. Ian Camacho, Mike, 2:53 p.m. If CNAME is canonical name, then why do we need PTR records? Okay, that's a good point. So in a DNS forward lookup zone, a canonical name is just it's like an alias. Okay, so for me, it would be like what would be an easy answer? Oh, like our mail server. A lot of times our mail server, its primary A record is mail.totalsem.com. But we have other ones in there like mail1.totalsem.com because certain email clients look for those. So that's helpful. A PTR record is a record that shows up in a reverse lookup zone. They don't even sit in the same zone. Remember that a forward lookup zone resolves fully qualified domain names to IP addresses. A PTR record resolves IP addresses to fully qualified domain names. It's rarely used. It's not used that much. There's many a DNS server that has no PTR records. They never established a proper forward reverse lookup zone, and it works. I always forget why we use PTR records. Then I look it up, and then I go, durr. Why PTR records? Yeah. They're used for security by mail servers. This is the only example I saw here quickly. So PTR records are in reverse lookup zones. Canonical names are in forward lookup zones. Kevin Lopez, Udemy has plenty of Linux courses. They do. Tolowit, I am still waiting for Mike's Sommelier Plus course. There you go. Man, I'm telling you, I've been cutting down on the alcohol, mainly because I want to, it's like my primary bad calories. Come here, Marco. Come here, Kenny. Okay, she doesn't want to be picked up right now. Scott Journey, let's build new machines. With a valve index too? Sure, why not? All right, let me talk to Scott and some of the powers that be about doing a system build. Some of these new Zen processors are pretty damn cool, I'm not going to lie. 2:55 p.m. Kevin Lopez. I have a whole ethical hacking lab set up. Wi-Fi Pineapple, always a fun tool. 2Pi4s. I just need to learn Linux. Yeah, Kevin, stop buying stuff, okay? And throw a Kali Linux on one of those Pis, and we'll go from there. I mean, Kali Linux is just an operating system, right? But, you know, it's the tools in there. Honestly, getting comfortable with a Metasploit framework would probably be important. What else? The wireless tools, wireless cracking tools. They're all in Kali. Sahib. Hi, Mike, 256. Do you do the CompTIA Cloud Plus course? Total Seminars does, and my good friend Tom Carpenter is the shining visage that does it. But yes, we do Cloud Plus here. 2:56 p.m. U4 Raymond. Can you use for VirtualBox for Enterprise? Everywhere seems to use VMware. No, I would not use VirtualBox for an enterprise environment. You got to remember that when we're talking about hypervisors like Hyper-V, VMware, VirtualBox, there are others, is that you have a big difference between a Type 1 hypervisor and a Type 2 hypervisor. VirtualBox is a Type 2 hypervisor. It is designed to run on top of your host operating system, usually Windows, although it works in a lot of other ones too. VMware, their primary tool of joy, which is ESX, is a type 1 hypervisor. When you install VMware as a type 1 hypervisor, it is the operating system. There's no Windows unless you spin one up in a virtual machine. And if you were to actually look at the interface for ESX, it's text and boring. It's because it's really not designed for you to ever go near that machine. You set up clients in VMware to interface with the server, and it's from the clients you spin up new virtual machines and that kind of a thing. So VMware is very much the heavy hitter. Interestingly enough, though, Hyper-V is really a type 1 hypervisor. When you install the Hyper-V, it becomes the primary operating system and it turns your Windows into just one virtual machine. Yeah. So VirtualBox, by nature of what it wants to do, is a poor enterprise virtual machine. However, it has its place even in an enterprise. I mean, you're not going to sit here and spin up a bunch of web servers with VirtualBox. But like for me, I have people go, Mike, I'm running, it used to be worse. It's not as bad as it used to be. Mike, I'm running Windows 8. I'm trying to do blah, blah, blah. Or Mike, I've got Windows 10, build blah, blah, blah. And for us, we have this huge collection of operating systems up to like DOS 3.1. I'm not sure why we keep it in there. I think it's there for laughs. But in our enterprise environment, actually that's all under that's all under VMware too. I keep VirtualBox on my system for backward compatibility testing more than anything else. But the other thing I want to stress to you is that if you learn virtualization using VirtualBox, when you go to VMware, most of the core stuff is the same. You have to click in different places. Sometimes they use different names for things, but it would be like learning how to drive in a Ford and then jumping over to a Chevrolet. The core pieces are all there. And sometimes you got to poke around and fiddle to figure out how to turn on the windshield wipers or whatever it might be. But there is a tremendous amount of similarity between VMware, Hyper-V, VirtualBox, Parallels, and what else do you want to throw in there? Kevin Lopez, I need to revisit your Wireshark live stream. Yeah, I do. Or if you get my videos, I did a good Wireshark video for NetPlus. That's also a really good source. Was it NetPlus or Security Plus? Not sure. Mike, ever use Terminator in Linux? It's pretty sweet, especially after run multiple terminals. Axe, I have not. I usually am a single terminal guy. I've heard of this program. It lets you run lots of separate terminals, but I do not know anything about it. Krampus Dumpling. Just love saying your name, if no other reason. 301. Hey, Mike, if I was to go back to watch your videos on VirtualBox, where would be a good place? I'm mostly interested in Windows Server Free Edition. Is free because it's like 90 days? No, it's a lot more. Is it like 30 days? It's 90 days. Pretty sure. Krampus, I'm going to let Scott Jernigan research that, and he'll give an answer for you. Scott is typing furiously. 6 months. It's the server evaluation for Windows. Thank you, Scott. Man, you are Johnny on the spot today, brother. 6 months. It lasts for 6 months. So very much worth the time and effort. Ian, Mike, what was the IT world like before certification came into existence? How did people get jobs? I got a job once just because I knew what a C prompt was. I'm not kidding. And the world of certification can be dated to the late 80s with the Novell CNE. But yeah, the good old boy network was super tight, still pretty tight. You'll discover that most of the jobs you get once you get into this business is because it's someone you know offers you a job. That is pretty common. So it was the good old boy network. The network of friends and business relations that you would have would be the way to do it. You used to do things like look in the paper for job ads. Yeah, I know, things have changed. You kids don't know how good you got it. Falak, just resolved the issue. Now installing Ubuntu. Oh, okay. I'm trying to imagine how you quickly resolve that issue because that sounded like a big job, but okay. Kevin Lopez, the clinic I work at just posted an IT position for help desk. The problem is I'll need an A+ and a driver's license for some reason. Okay. So, Kevin, I'm assuming you're here in the States. Driver's licenses are fairly common things. Probably want a driver's license because you have to be driving around from site to site. That's a good job to get if you can get it, man. Yeah, and the other thing, Kevin, is that if it's a clinic you're already working at, if you're in-house and you understand the jargon, the terminology, and push that in the interview. Sit there and go, look, I understand how we work, okay? Yeah, I might be a little short on being able to instantly, pick the right hard drive replacement, but that's stuff that can be trivially researched. What you need is people who won't get screwed up and use terminology that's unique to your clinic. Jack, now you're going to show up? It's an hour late. Jack. Come here, kitty. We might have Jack. Let's see if he wants to show up. But good luck to you, Kevin. Let us know if you get that job. In fact, let us know even if you don't get the job. What happened? I'd be curious to hear what happens. You coming up? You gonna come up and say hello to the folks? Come on, kitty. There he is. Hey! Say hi, Jack. He's marginally sociable today, folks. All right. Nether Vex. Hi, Mike. I'm learning your courses at my desk right now. No, you're listening to me right now. I like your outro music better. Thank you. Yeah, the marketing people didn't like that outro music. They said it was too long. Anthony Sassini. Only give me 12 addresses with WAC 240. Anthony, is there more to this? And it only gives out 12 addresses with a 240. It's a 240. Even I have to do these backwards sometimes. 12 addresses. Anthony, I'm not seeing your entire question here. On a 240. All right. Sure, I'll subnet on a piece of paper. Yep, 128, 64, 32. I go through the same process. I teach everybody to do this stuff. This is 192. 224. 240. All right, so you got 16. You should have 12. 16 addresses minus 2. You should have 14 addresses, and you only have 12. Anthony, I don't see the first part of your question, but I can almost guarantee that if you've got an ISP passing you out a 240 address, they're going to keep one of those addresses for the up port of their router, and then they fix another one for the WAN side of your router. So on any 14 addresses, 2 are used for the routers themselves, your upstream gateway, and then the router itself, and leaving you only whatever's left over. That sounds right to me. Ian Camacho. Okay, so PTR is basically like ARP if physical addresses were FQDNs. There is an analogy to that, I guess, So 307, Ian Camacho. Okay, so PTR is basically like ARP if physical addresses were fully qualified domain names. No, not really. The problem I have with that analogy, Ian, is that there is actually something called a RARP, reverse ARP, which might be more accurate. Still, it's a tough analogy. Michael Hill, what is a good IT side gig I can do for a little extra money? That one's easy. Go to your local copy store, get those business cards. You can get 500 business cards for $12 and print on that, say, general PC repair, and just start passing them out. Just pass them out. And get some good anti-malware tools ready, because that's 90% of your job. You will be shocked how easy it is to get business simply by passing out your card. You're like, well, Mike, what if I screw up? Then don't charge them. You know what I mean? Then don't charge them. Then sit there and go, I'm sorry, I couldn't work this. Whatever. It's a side gig. But after a while, you'll start getting very, very comfortable very, very quickly. You don't need a bunch of equipment. You don't get some Phillips screwdrivers. That's about the only thing you're ever going to need. And get out there and start fixing stuff. Most people have malware problems. The other thing most people have is they need an instructor, honestly. I run into so many situations where it's not that the computer was broken, it's that they were doing something poorly. And so that's part of that whole repair guy gig that I would get into. And I was like, look, so I do some little training that I think you might be helpful. And it's $30 an hour. We just sit for an hour, kind of work together. And, when you want me to come by. And you would be shocked how many people will take advantage of something like that. Especially if you're a young person and you're just starting out. Then you'll start getting, this kid, I cut his hair, but he left some cards out here. He's a good kid. Give him a try. You'd be shocked. Shocked, Michael Hill, at the number of people that would take on your work. Now, Michael, I'm assuming certain things like you're old enough to legally work, stuff like that. So I can't guarantee it, but it's pretty good. Project Draven, system builds are great to stream. No, I think they're terrible to stream because they're slow. Jack hates them, don't you, Jack? No, I just hate those things. You've got like Linus Tech Tips and guys like that who do builds. They're basically giving you highlight reels. But we might be able to do so. Let me talk to Scott Jernigan and see what he thinks about it. Scott's like, I'm going to get a new Zen system. Maybe. Axe 308 system build giveaway. No. You're a hilarious guy. You could win a dream date with Mike. Chris Arkwright, I built a pretty nice AMD Ryzen 3900X back in early 2020. Yeah, well, Chris, all computer parts go down. That is very true. James, I just passed Core 1 A+. Thanks to your book. Congratulations. Big round of applause to you, James. Now go past the 1002 and then come back and tell us how you did. Kevin Lopez, 313. I want to make a Windows Server virtual machine, but store it externally. Okay. Didn't we talk about this? I have a spare 2.5-inch SSD and USB adapter. Would it be okay to use, or should I buy an external SSD? There is no difference. If you have a 2.5-inch SATA SSD with a USB adapter, That is an external SSD. You've just put it together yourself. Yeah, it's fine. The only trick is, Kevin, is remember that when you turn your computer off, the virtual machines are files that are going to be stored on that particular device, right? So whatever hypervisor you use, at some point you have to go, my storage area isn't C:\programs / VMware / VMs, or C:\users /Kevin / my VMs. You have to point it. Let's say you're going to say that's going to be your E drive. Make sure you configure the virtual machine hypervisor to say, look over here for my virtual machines. Do you agree, Jack? He just sits there and purrs like Jabba the Lump kitty. Project Draven. I'm building VMs right now and working with dynamic disks just for learning. Yeah, dynamic disks are great. As a matter of fact, Project Draven, Matt, this is a great reason to do virtual machines, is because you can do all of your RAID stuff really easily. I tried to make a mirrored volume and it crashed the VM. I gave it 4 gigabytes of RAM. Should I give it more? Assuming you're running Windows, this is on Windows 10, well done. No. Well, 4 gigabytes is, I always tell everybody, to me, for Windows 10, it really needs 8 gigabytes of RAM. 16 is nice. I run 64 gigabytes of RAM whenever possible. And the main reason I'm running that much RAM is, I'm doing things like Adobe Creative Cloud and Blender and stuff like that tends to eat up memory. Gaming eats up memory. So I would definitely give it more. But so Matt, Project Draven, when you say it's crashing, does it just like shut off and disappears and you have to restart from the manager? Or does it lock up the VM itself? MSAU. Oh God, Ian Camacho. MSAU was a hub that was used in a technology of your forefathers called token ring. See, we think that everything is Ethernet, and it's not. We have all kinds of other topologies, and Ethernet is a book that says how to make a network. Everything from how to network cards work, how to do the cabling, how to make a hub or a switch or whatever it is. Token Ring was IBM's alternative to Ethernet, and their hubs were called MSAUs, and it was the technology of your forefathers. Every time I tell everybody Token Ring's dead, there's a big Coke distributorship here in Houston. They're still running everything on Token Ring. But yeah, Ian, are you telling me that I still mention Token Ring in my latest Network Plus book? I might have to consider that. Falak Khan, I needed to activate install Windows feature, Window Virtual Machine and Hypervisor platforms, and it worked. I gotta look that one up. So I'm just looking up what you put in there, Falak. Now I'm curious. It sounds to me like you turned on Hyper-V. You know what? Sooner than later, I'm going to come back to Hyper-V. I'm not against Hyper-V. I'm better at VirtualBox. But Falak, it sounds to me that you just turned on Hyper-V. which is an excellent way. It's nothing wrong with that, just not the language I speak, you know? Kevin Lopez, 319, another question. What free tool is there to wipe an SSD? I have an SSD card formatter. Scott, can you think of a good, God, there's so many out there. So do you want to wipe it and it's still usable? Or do you want to do just an erase where you can start from scratch? I'm doing some quick searching here. There's always some tool out there. So part of, well, it's an ATA command set called Security Erase. I'm trying to find a utility that actually lights it up. Oh, goodness. There. I'm going to put this link up here so you guys can see it. This guy mentions a ton of, this is just an article I ran into. And this guy has SanDisk, Crucial, Western Digital, Seagate. All these guys have tools for erasing SSDs, which is basically a super trim command. Well, it just goes to show you, I don't keep tools like that around. If I need to securely erase something, honestly, unless you're working like for the government or something, just erase the partitions and put them back. I mean, is the data still there? Yeah, I guess some forensics expert, you know, keeping your cocaine deals on an Excel spreadsheet or something, yeah, maybe you might want to go with something more aggressive like this. But really, usually just reformatting is sufficient for me. As far as I can tell. Yeah, Ian Camacho, Scott Jernigan confirms that there's no token ring in the latest Net Plus book. Certainly, it's not on the exam. But I do mention it in the sidebar at one point. It's interesting, Ian Camacho, that was an issue for you. Because I'm not so much worried about answering you, Ian, as I'm going, are we creating distractions for readers? Scott Jernigan, you hearing me on that one? Anthony Sassini, now we're getting some, I get a weird amount of host addresses and it won't give me 5. Anthony, send me an email, brother. It's going to get complicated. Just give me a quick rundown of the situation over at michaelm@totalsem.com. I am very, very much glad to help you out, but I'm afraid that we're going to need a little more detail to be able to get on this. Like, you know, who's your ISP? How do you even know? This is the other thing. How do you know that you have a subnet, a 240 subnet? Most ISPs give you a piece of paper, and they'll sit there and say, this is what you're paying, $125 a month for, or whatever it is. I shouldn't name prices for getting your own subnets. They're expensive. But yeah, send me an email. It looks like a fun one to talk about. We've only got half an hour left. We can try, Anthony, to keep trying here, and you're welcome to do that. But it might be better for everybody is if you just send me an email and kind of give me a breakdown of the situation, maybe a couple of screen snaps to support you, and then that could make it really interesting and fun to deal with. Patrick Dunlap. Hi, Mike. Do you know of any inherent disadvantages of AMD processors versus Intel processors? Yeah, there's a big problem. And what you do is you take your wallet, and if your wallet is too thick, what you do is buy an Intel processor, and that will thin your wallet down, okay? If you have a thinner wallet, go ahead and just buy an AMD processor, because AMD processors are terrible at making your wallet thinner, unless it's a Threadripper. I'm still trying to rationalize why I don't need a Threadripper. I don't need a Threadripper. I don't need. It's only $1,300 for a CPU. No, Patrick, I'm a big fan of AMD. Big fan. Patricia Grace, can you suggest a password manager for small businesses for non-techies? Yeah, LastPass is good, but the other one you might want to look into is RoboForm, RoboForm. I don't use it, but my business partner, who is technically dangerously incompetent, has been using it for years, and he loves it, absolutely loves it. RoboForm. Daniel Tinsley, a microwave is a good way to make the data not recoverable and to make your microwave non-functional. But it makes such pretty sparks. Just reading, folks. Bear with me a minute, guys. Ba 329, Jason Daniel. Hey, Mike, I have a question regarding NIS and Active Directory and how they relate. They do not relate. I've never used NIS, to be honest with you. If I go to single sign-on, even in a Linux environment, I'll still bring in a Windows domain controller. Can NIS bind Linux workstations to a domain? I don't think they can. Maybe we can go over that next session. Jason, I'm sorry, bud. I'm not familiar with NIS. Scott, are you ever jack with NIS? It's an old thing that I just don't use. I'm sorry. I'm going to have to back away from that one. I can tell you NIS is not on any CompTIA certification. Yes, I needed to turn on Hyper-V. Good, Falak. Glad you're working. Scott is equally confused on NAS. I feel better. Boo-doo-doo-boo. Lots of good questions today. I'm happy. Jack, are you happy? Okay. Are you happy? He didn't want me to pick him up today. He's like, I'll just sit right here and grace you with my presence. The other thing I've discovered is Jack wants to be an author, because I'll be sitting here typing on a book and Jack will jump up on my keyboard and go, no, write it like this. Except Jack is terrible at English. A lot of passive voice, dangling modifiers. To infinitively split. Daniel Tinsley's talking about CCleaner Pro. Ooh, Daniel, get Scott Jernigan and you talking about CCleaner. Scott thinks it's of the devil. He thinks it might be Satan. I like CCleaner Pro because it does do a good job yanking out redundant registry keys, homeless registry keys, stuff like that. But to me, that's what I use it for. I'm unaware of it having a zeroing feature. Looking for questions. Go ask Alice. Is Alice on? You know, it's not a session unless Alice Potsy's on. We need to go ask Alice when she's 10 feet tall. Okay, Jefferson Airplane. U4 Raymond is recommending KeyPass. U4, I've heard that one. Let me look that one up real quick. Yep. Haven't used it, U4, but I do know that it's out there and that people speak highly of it. Quadro versus GeForce, other than price. Daniel Tinsley, 336. Because you're never going to need a Quadro. I mean, unless you're doing like big graphics workstation stuff or, you know, something like that. GeForce is plenty. Scott Jernigan, of course you need a Threadripper. That's secret code for we build the system and Scott Jernigan gets it. I mean, Scott plays, what? Are you playing, Scott Jernigan, you're playing Civ 6 these days, right? Sorry, that is not a graphically intense game. Jason Primavera, hey Mike, just wanted to say hi. I'm watching your A+ videos and they're great. Thank you, Jason. Project Draven, Matt just upped the RAM and everything's working. Look at that, just because you're online with me, it's like magic. Elbow, would a PCIe 4 GPU be limited by a PCIe 3 slot? Yes. What limits? It's, oh God, don't make me try to quote those speed ratings off the top of my head. Look it up. I don't remember. I forget. It's just speed. Or bandwidth, really. What do you think about the Google IT certification? Does it look good on a resume or better to make it an A+? This is Sam the Man, 1028, 3:37 p.m. I'm starting, the only time I hear about Google IT certifications is from viewers. I never hear about it in the industry at all. That doesn't necessarily make it bad, but that's where my eyeballs are like, what do people who are hiring look for? Everybody's looking for A+ in one way or another, either officially or unofficially. I am unfamiliar. I've never taken any of these Google IT certifications. I would think it would be better to take the A+. Oh, big scan. Threadripper giveaway. Dream on. Greg Davis, I only see the Threadripper as being used for a VM or a straight server due to cores and threads. Am I right? No, certainly I would look at it as a server system of one way or another, whether it's serving virtual machines or anything else. But yeah, absolutely. I missed a Spaceballs quote. Hold on, Ian Camacho, 341. So the combination is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the yeah. Spaceballs. Greg Davis thinks a Zen 3 would be better than a Threadripper. It certainly wouldn't quite murder your pocketbook as much. All right, so it looks like questions are slowing down a little bit. How are we doing on time? We're an hour and 45 minutes into this. All right. Well, let's do a giveaway. What do you say, Scott? Let's give something away. Greg Davis, Threadripper, yeah, okay. I agree, Greg. All right, so total it, port 443. All right, so let's do a giveaway. I got to think of something fun to give away. I'm going to give away the cat. Jack's ears went back. He's like, that's not happening. Okay, so we're not giving away any felines today. Let's give away something fun. So we will give away free access to, we will give away free access to either the A+, Net+, or Security Plus practice questions. How's that sound? And now I definitely need to think of a good question. What would be a fun question? Like I had something ready to go here. I can't think of a good question quickly. I've got, hang on, I'll come up with it. Okay, fine. I don't even know the answer to this. I'm going to have to look it up myself. What's the maximum speed for USB 3.1? Ready? First person to write it down in the chat wins. Maximum speed for USB 3.1. And my answer is right, because there's almost certainly going to be some variation in here. Ooh. So I thought it was 10 gigabits per second. $1.21 gigabytes. No, is it 20 or is it, God bless it, is it 10 or 20? I'm just trying to find a simple answer for a simple question. Scott Jernigan, help, help, help. Because we have some guys who've already did 10 gigabytes, 10 gigabits, and some have already done 20. I got to do a little research quickly. I'm reduced to Wikipedia. $20 gigabits per second. That's what I was thinking of. No, it's actually, hang on. I did say USB 3.1. I did not say USB 3.2. So the right answer is 10 gigabits per second. Who said 10 gigabits per second first? And the winner is Matt, Project Draven. Woo, congratulations, Matt. Sorry it took so long to come up with a good question and a good answer. Matt, here's how you get your money. This is how you get your prize. No money's involved here. So Matt, what you got to do is send an email to Kathy Yale at our office. Scott Jernigan will put that down on the screen for you. It's kathyy@totalsim.com. And just send her an email, say, I won the contest on the 4th, and I would like either the A plus or the Net plus or the Security plus practice questions. And then just using your email, that's your logon, and you get access. It's all online. So congratulations to you, Matt. Well done for the new guy. Yeah, lots of people got it right, but the trick here is just whoever I see first. And also keep in mind, I don't see the chat in the same order you guys do. And they're different for everybody. So Ian Camacho did a Monty Python reference. European or African? 1 or 2 coconuts? Some call me Tim. There we go. Okay. We got it, Ian. We got it. All right. There you go. Okay, so congratulations to the winner today. Are we out of questions? Going once. Going twice. All right, guys. That's it for today then. Keep in mind, I'm going to talk to Scott Jernigan about talking about a system build. I'm not quite sure how we would do that. I'm going to have to think about that. And we will see how Scott wants to do this. Oh, do keep in mind that there is a Discord server. It is not a Total Seminars Discord server. It is completely unofficial Discord server. Scott Jernigan, would you be a buddy and schlep the URL for the Discord server up there? It's just for funsies, and we kind of jump in and out. All are welcome, and so please consider joining. I'll probably jump in and say hello for a little bit, and I know Scott Jernigan will be there. Dave Rush will probably be there, and there's the Discord link, and it should be okay. And we look forward to seeing you. Wait, got a couple more questions coming in right under the board. Do you think we should ditch RJ45 already? Everybody else is on the motherboard has evolved. Sure. What are you going to replace it with, right? I mean, that's the big issue. No, RJ45 is an established standard, and it's not going anywhere anytime soon. Probably what will end up replacing RJ45 is either wireless, which is not that good of an idea in my opinion, or fiber. Fiber prices continue to collapse. Sean McLaughlin of 350. What do you think of Intel Optane setup? It's a small SSD that works as a cache attached to a traditional hard disk drive. I'm not familiar with the Intel Optane in and of itself. I mean, hybrid drives have been around for a while where you got, like a 6 terabyte drive with a big SSD cache. They're generally okay. I don't know if I'd handle them for mission critical stuff. Do you know what would happen if you try to create an image with Macrium Reflect? I don't know. It's an interesting point. Sean, I guess my bigger question is, what are you trying to do? That might be, I'd have to see what you're trying to shoot for with that one then. Okay, well, I think that's it for questions. All right, guys, so we're going to shut down 8 minutes early. Woohoo! Anyway, feel free to jump onto the Discord server. There's some pretty unsavory characters on there, so I make no guarantees about the topics that may come up. Again, this Discord server is not associated with Total Seminars or Michael Myers. Neither do I approve or disapprove of the topicalities. But it's also a pretty good thing. Anyway, folks, I'm going to let you go, and we'll see you on Discord in a little bit. And until then, this is your little Uncle Mikey saying good night. Good night.